Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Amelia Roberts, and we are going to be talking about the switch function in this video. Switch is a very powerful DAX function that you can use within Power BI. The switch and the if function are actually used pretty similarly, so it typically comes down to preference. A lot of people prefer switch over if. It all just depends on what you would like to do. So let's talk about what it does. The switch function is going to evaluate an expression against a list of values, and it's going to return one of multiple possible result expressions. So you're going to give it an expression, a value, a result, a value, a result. And then you're going to give it an else at the end. These are great because you don't have to keep inputting switch and then your entire function that follows, kind of like you have to do with the if function. You can simply use the switch function once and then a nice little list of what you want switched out. What it's pretty much going to do is exactly as it says. You're going to tell it, if it says this, I want you to switch it out for this. Take this value, switch it out for this value. And if no match is found in what you're wanting switched, you can give it that final option of, if it's not here, then put this as the value. So this is like a very versatile decision maker. It's going to help you choose from multiple options based on a given expression. It's going to check the expression against that list and then give you an output. I have an example here. A budget allocation, you put the switch function, you provided a table and a column that we're going to look at. Anywhere it says high, I want you to put 50,000, medium, 30,000, low, 10,000. And if none of those are there, put 0. So anywhere you want to use this, if you just want to create a column or a measure where it's flopping one thing for another, this is a great function for you to use. Let's head over to my laptop, check out what this actually does in a real setting. So here we are back in Power BI. I'm on my switch page down at the bottom. I've got a very simple table here that we're going to come back to test this out. But I am going to head over to my table view. We're going to start with a column. I'm going to go to my date table actually for this one because I haven't gotten to work in here much, but this is a great option for what I want to do. So I want to switch out. I have a column called the month number of year, the month number of year. So if you want to try and find that, see, I have the month number of year right here. And what I actually want is I want the words of each month instead of the number. Now, there are 100 ways to do this. There are a lot more easier ways to do this, but for this example, I think it's a great show of what you can do with the switch function, and it gets us in a different table than we've been traditionally working in. So let's go up to new column up at the top. I'm just going to call this the switch example, and I am going to start by using my switch function right off the bat. Here, IntelliSense is telling me I need an expression first and then a value and a result. So let's go ahead and give that first. My expression is going to be referencing the table and the column in which I'm trying to pull this information from. I am in my date table and I am pulling from the month number of year column. So need that. I'm done with my expression. So I'm going to put a comma and move on to my value. So now I need to give the value. And then I need to give the result. So the value that's going to be in that column is going to be my month number of years. So that's a 1 through 12. And the results that I want to give for each one is the corresponding name of the month. I am going to drop to another line because this may be a bit extensive. I'm not going to do every single month just for the purpose of this example. So I am going to start first with, of course, January, which is the first month. That is going to be my value. I'm going to put a comma, and now I need to put the results. So what I want it to put is January. For anywhere that it sees a 1 in the row, it needs to put a January there. I'm going to put a comma, and then I can add another value and another result. I can add multiple here. Remember, you can list out the things you want switched. So I'm going to drop to another line for organizational purposes. We're going to do 2. And we're going to do February. And then a comma. And then you can go to 3, March. Now, I'm only going to do those 3 months. I could do all 12 if I wanted to, but I do not want to type all that out. You can go through all you want, but what I want to do is for everything else, so I can continue to put a value, or I can simply just tell it, please put, I'm going to put unknown. So it makes it kind of obvious what's going on. And then let's close that parenthesis off because we are done with our switch function. So what I have here is I have for my expression, I want it to refer to that month number of year column. Anywhere that it says a 1 or 2 or a 3, it's going to replace it with either January, February, or March. If it's not a 1, 2, or 3, if it's anything else, it's going to label it unknown. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And let's see what happens. So right off the bat, we can see a lot of unknown just by the way that my data is sorted. If I drop this arrow down, I can see there is March, January, February, and unknown, which is exactly what I had planned. This worked exactly how I wanted it to. So now that I have a column made using the switch function, let's head back to the report view and let's try this out in a measure. So I can apply this with a calculation as well. This one's going to be a little bit longer. I'm going to add a few other different functions in with this. So let's see what we can create. I'm going to go to my measure table and I'm going to go to new measure up at the top. And I am going to call this my switch example. And I'm going to, of course, start out with my switch function. Now, once again, I need an expression to use. I'm actually going to use another function. I'm going to use true, which if you're unsure what the true function does, go check out my DAX guide video. I do have a video on the true function. Check out what it does and it will explain everything. So true, and then I am going to do the sum of my sales amount column. So if the sum of my sales amount column is over a certain number, I want to label it excellent. If it is over another number, I want to label it good. If it's over another number, I want to label it average. And then everything else is, I'm going to put poor because I can't really think of another word. Sounds kind of negative, but we're going to go with it. I'm going to drop down to another line. So I want the sum, and then I'm going to do internet sales, sales amount, and then I'm going to do, if it's over, let's do 100,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it's over 100,000, the sum, then I would like it to be called excellent. Now, I'm definitely going to add more layers to this. One thing I love about this function is you can copy and paste these. Now, I'm seeing I have an error here. If you haven't worked with DAX or you've only been following guides that give you perfect DAX, this is a great learning opportunity for you right here. I have this red line, just like you see in something like Microsoft Word, where it says you spelled something wrong. It means there's an error. I did make an error here, and I'm glad I did because I haven't gotten to show this in many of my other videos. Errors happen. They're going to happen to you. It's great to figure out why. I here have a sum function. My sum is going to be the sum of my internet sales amount. I had finished that function. I had put everything. I put a column and a table in there. Once I finish that column in my table, that is the end of my sum function. I need to put a parenthesis here. And there goes my error. So now that that's fixed, one thing I love about the switch function, I also love this with the if function if you're stacking your if functions, is copying and pasting. So I'm going to copy all of this and I am going to paste it right underneath it. So Shift Enter, I'm going to paste because I want to do a different amount and label it something different with my switch function. This time, I'm just going to change this number to 50,000. And I'm going to change the word to good. I want to do excellent. I want to do good. Let's drop it down another line even, and let's do 10,000. So let's just get rid of one of these. And we're going to call this average. So I'm going to stop there, and now I'm going to give it my everything else. So anything pretty much lower than 10,000, I want you to label it poor. That is the end of my switch function. So I am going to close off that parenthesis. Another thing I want to point out here, just like when you're using your if function and you're stacking them on top of each other, you do need to go in a specific order. It's going to follow the first logical test first, and then it'll go to the next one to see if it meets that. So you do need to have it in the proper order. Usually a descending order is your best bet. And let's go ahead, hit enter. And per usual, we did make a measure. We're not going to be able to see if it worked until we put it in a visual. So I am going to add my switch example measure. I'm just going to drag and drop it onto my visual here. And now we can see poor and average is probably the most common here, because we do have this pretty, since we're using English product name, very small subset. If I were to do, let's try something else, maybe a more broad topic. So on this visual, let's switch out this English product name with maybe the age breakdown. See, now these are all excellent. So I'm seeing everything come up here. That's exactly what I want. I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, I will see you in the next one.